In 2021, on pretty much a complete whim, I picked up a dark fantasy Metroidvania called Ender Lillies, Quietus of the Nights. In this game, you played as a young priestess called Lily in a land suffering from a blighted rain, which turned the land's denizens into monstrous undead. With Lily's abilities, she could purify some of these undead and use them to fight with her. I remember being pleasantly surprised by the game's evocative atmosphere, interesting mechanics, and its incredible soundtrack. So, when a sequel titled Ender Magnolia Bloom in the Mists was announced, I was excited, and when it released in January 2025, I picked it up to play in between a couple of other big games. So now, 3.5 years and 78 platinums after I finished Ender Lillies, I have finished its sequel and added it to my platinum collection. So let's take a look at what it takes to earn the Platinum Trophy in Ender Magnolia Blooms in the Mist. Ender Magnolia takes place in the Land of Fumes, a land where artificial humanoids called homunculi have been created to harvest magical energy from deep underground. This has been done in a desperate attempt to protect the land from a phenomenon known as the Reign of Death. However, the blight persists, and coupled with the corrupted fumes from deep underground, both the people and the homunculi have been driven to madness, turning violent and mindless. The story is very similar to Ender Lillies, and much like the protagonist there, Ender Magnolia's lead, Lilac, has the ability to purify and control some of these corrupted creatures. While the narrative is quite simple initially, and you could be forgiven for thinking it was a copy-paste of the first games, as you explore and purify new friends, you get to view some of their memories, or you could read some of the many collectibles throughout the world, and they all come together to paint a much darker picture of the Land of Fumes. There is much more sense of an actual narrative here than there was in Ender Lillies, with NPCs that you can interact with, and small cutscenes both before and after bosses. There are even some spots at rest points where you can have little conversations between Lilac and her homunculi that she is allied with. These are all quite cute and entertaining, but despite this, I never really felt completely enraptured by Ender Magnolia's narrative or characters, or the discoveries that you make on your journey. One thing that the game does really well, though, is its atmosphere. Environments are bleak, desolate, and as blighted as the creatures that inhabit them. The variety of twisted creatures you fight range from rusted humanoids to corrupted insects, and they all fit together to tell the story of this benighted world, and in a much clearer and more interesting way than the dialogue ever manages to. It was always really cool to stumble into a new area and see how the game world fit together, especially with more visually interesting ones like the Crimson Forest or Declan's Estate. The game looks gorgeous though, its distinct zones all fitting together to make a cohesive yet bleak world, the decaying grandeur of the Crimson Forest with its twisted trees, or the industrial grime of the arcane factory littered with boxes and machinery, creating twisted new homunculi. The way the levels are designed is clever too, constantly pulling the player to explore and discover its secrets. I really liked how vertical the world felt, with you constantly travelling upwards, and the maps around you getting grander and the monsters less grotesque, the further you moved away from the blight below. All of this atmosphere, though, is really, truly brought together by the music, with a score that ranges from haunting piano pieces to songs reminiscent of Nier Automata. I loved the soundtrack of Ender Lillies, and Ender Magnolia's feels even more impressive. Some of the boss themes are incredible and absolutely heighten the game to another level. It wouldn't be too much of a stretch to say that the soundtrack is my favourite thing about this game. As a Metroidvania, Ender Magnolia is excellent, with a huge sprawling map for you to explore and various abilities to help you get around and enemies to defeat. But Lilac is but a young girl, so how does she manage this task? Well, when Lilac purifies one of the homunculi, they will join her and offer an ability. Some of these are combat ones, such as Nola, who has a sword and becomes your basic melee attack. But you quickly unlock more options, like a winged gunman whose rapid-fire pistols can destroy an enemy's guard bar, or an autonomous owl that fires at set intervals without any prompting from the player. These can all be assigned to different buttons, and each one has 3 different abilities that you can further unlock to choose from. For example, Nola starts off with access to a sword, but you can unlock a hammer or a scythe instead, which drastically alters her combat style, and mixing and matching these abilities from various homunculi make the game feel deeper and more rewarding, especially when experimentation with these can turn fighting a boss from a challenge into a much more manageable feat. Equipable items like carapaces will either increase your stats or unlock the option to give yourself a temporary shield when you press the dodge button without directional input. Getting the timing right on this not only stops you from getting smacked around, but often gives you an additional bonus like a small heal or sending a shockwave back towards your aggressor. There are bracelets that offer defensive boosts and totems that give slight changes to your healing, like giving a one-time full heal when you get to low HP, or giving you an attack boost for a short time when you use a healing item. Lastly, there are your relics, which offer a variety of boosts from simple damage boosts to movement speed boosts or status resistances. Putting all of these together can give you quite a lot of freedom for how you prepare for fights, but more often than not, disappointingly, you won't change them that often, because some are just so much better than the others. The first totem you find, which gives you a big heal when you get to low health automatically, is the one I used until pretty much the end of the game, where I found one that did the same thing, but also gave you an additional healing use. I rarely changed my homunculi abilities because the ones I found a combination of early on carried me all the way until the end of the game. I feel like Ender Lillies had this problem too, but in that game there are a lot more spirits to find, so it felt a lot more fun to experiment with all the different combinations. Despite having fewer options than its predecessor though, Ender Magnolia's combat is superb. It feels responsive and fluid, and although it is quite tough due to how little healing you have access to and how much health you lose when you eventually do take a hit, combat feels incredibly fair, and every time that I took damage I could see how I was supposed to avoid it. All enemies have a yellow bar under their health, and when it is depleted it will stun them for a short while, and certain abilities like Yolvan's pistols will help tear through that barrier quickly, and this is the core mechanic of most of the boss fights. Chipping away at their defences, dodging the attacks that they launch at you, before getting to smack them around for a little bit. While Ender Magnolia isn't as challenging as any of the Souls game or some other Metroidvanias like Blasphemous, this still has quite a few challenging bosses, and beating them always felt like an achievement. Combat is only half the game though, and as I said, the Land of Fumes is a sprawling map, and one that I had so much fun exploring. One of my favourite parts of any Metroidvania is the backtracking that you do once you have a new ability, trying to find the way forward, but oftentimes just finding new secrets or items, and Ender Magnolia is full of this. Unlike a lot of Metroidvanias I've played, it is also quite open at times, often giving you multiple paths to fully explore, and you'll need to do both of them before it lets you go any further. It isn't a big thing at all, but it's a small touch that I really appreciated and made my exploration of the world feel much more natural and led by my own desire to move ahead rather than just being led around. The abilities you unlock from purifying homunculi for traversal are pretty standard for the genre. You have your double jump, you have your dash, and all of those. But the rate that you unlock and upgrade these abilities means that you're always finding new ways to get around, and the game never feels stale or boring. One other touch that I think is worth mentioning is how Ender Magnolia approaches difficulty options. On the default difficulty, the game can be quite challenging at moments, but for the most part it isn't too difficult. However, if this is too hard or too easy, you can change things, like enemy health, enemy attack speed, and attack damage. Inversely, you could add challenges like not getting an indicator when an enemy attack is about to happen, or not being able to heal at all. These offer experience multipliers for increasing the difficulty, or decrease your experience when you make them easier, and I think this is a really neat way of dealing with difficulty in a game like this. So, how difficult is the Platinum Trophy then? Well, not really that difficult at all. There are no missables and no trophies related to difficulty. All you need to do is fully explore the Land of Fumes. Almost all of the trophies will come naturally if you do this, but there are a few things you definitely need to complete, including finding all the relics for the Relisher of Relics trophy. Many of these are hidden throughout the map, and a lot of them are in small hidden paths in the map. There are quite a lot of these, but the game is pretty helpful in letting you know when you have missed things, with each room turning blue if it has been fully explored. There is one thing to note, however, as I made this mistake. A room will go blue even if you have ignored an exit. Thankfully, each region also has a box next to its name that will become filled in if the entire area is fully explored, so check both, as you may have missed a sneaky exit in one room. You will also need to pay attention to these areas, as all of the HP upgrades you need for Nothing to Fear are also only found in the world. If you get to the end of the game and you find that you are missing a HP upgrade, it might be worth checking the final boss room itself, as there is one hidden at the top of the map in the top left hand corner in the final boss room. Pretty early on in the game, you get access to a place called a craftery, where you can use the materials you get from enemies to create new items. These start out as pretty basic, but hidden around the map are grimoires which expand the number of items you can create, and getting all of these will earn Forged in Fire. These are also how you get most of the carapaces, bracelets and totems, which are incredibly helpful in getting through the game. And there are trophies for each of these, so crafting all of them will be necessary, although there are a few that are hidden in chests throughout the world. The craftery does also offer some other things too, like the materials that you need to enhance some of your homunculi abilities, and items that give you more relic slots. The relic slots are actually kind of a trap, since there's no trophy related to them, but they are useful, so try and balance how many you get, or you might need to farm materials at the end of the game the same way that I did. Enhancing all of the abilities on your homunculi will get you the trophy Supreme Attuna, and also make you incredibly strong. The last thing to note is that Ender Magnolia has two different endings, and you'll need to see both of them. The first ending is pretty simple to get, you just finish the game and you'll get it, good job. The second ending node takes a bit more work. There is a completely optional area called the Land of Origins deep underground in the lower stratum. At first, you cannot access this place, but once you have met the Travelling Priest at the Sorcerer's Academy and received the Milius Lord Mark from the Arcane Factory, you can enter one area of the Land of Origin from the Crystalline Realm. Get to the bottom of this area and you will find another homunculi and an item called the Blighted Pupil. Then you can enter a different part of the Land of Origin from the Subterranean Waterway. Head all the way through this area and near the end you will find the character Levy, who will give you a different item. With both of these in hand, go and talk to the priest again at the Crimson Forest, and then enter the final Land of Origin area from the final disposal site. Reaching the end, and you will find the priest one more time, who will open a barrier for you. Go inside, see the scene here, then go back to Central City, and there should be an area with a blighted flower. The priest will be here waiting again, and she will use the two items you got previously to make a new one. Return to the area, past the barrier she removed, and get the blighted ring. This is a relic that costs 0 relic slots to wear, and if you wear this while fighting the last boss, he will not only be a lot harder and get a new phase, but it will also unlock the second ending. Once you have done that, you will earn the Platinum Trophy, End. I always have a soft spot for Metroidvanias, especially ones that have trophy lists that really leave exploration up to you. No missables, no punishing collectathons, just a game that lets you explore at your own pace, breathe in the world, and find everything that you can. And Ender Magnolia fits this bill perfectly. Not only does it achieve this though, it's a wonderful game in its own right, with exciting combat, a beautiful yet desolate world, and an incredible soundtrack. Although I do find its narrative to be a bit shaky, it hits so many other boxes for me, and with 2 games in a row from this developer that I have loved now, I can't wait to see what they come up with next. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed this look at Ender Magnolia, Blooms in the Mist, and I hope that it made you want to try it too. Let me know what you've been playing or platting in the comments, and until next time, happy hunting.